At first glance, it looks like nothing more than a trail of insects carrying scraps of leaves through the undergrowth of the Amazon rainforest. A green tide, fragmented into tiny sails, moves steadily along a beaten path. But this is no random march of hungry mouths. What unfolds here is a civilization hidden beneath the soil, an ancient society that discovered agriculture, antibiotics, and waste management millions of years before humans ever set foot in the Americas. To call these leafcutter ants mere insects is to miss the scale of what they have built. This is not a colony. It is a city. The leaves they carry are not food. This is the first great twist in their story, and perhaps the most surprising. The ants themselves cannot digest cellulose, the tough backbone of plants. Instead, they harvest foliage as raw material for an entirely different life form. Underground, in sprawling gardens larger than a human house, they cultivate a special fungus that has evolved alongside them. Every fragment of greenery cut in the forest canopy is not a meal but a seed investment, fodder for crops that feed the colony. It is farming in its purest form, and these ants have been practicing it for at least 50 million years, long before the first human hand ever sowed a field. If we look closer at the trail, we see an intricate assembly line that rivals the order of human infrastructure. At the front are the cutters, specialized workers with massive jaws that shear leaf fragments with astonishing efficiency, using their mandibles like living scissors. Behind them march the couriers, smaller ants burdened with green sails several times their body weight. Each courier follows a strict traffic pattern, moving along designated lanes that reduce collisions. It is organized chaos, streams of bodies moving in opposite directions like cars on a highway, but without gridlock. Scientists studying these foraging lanes have discovered that the ants instinctively adopt rules of flow that mirror human engineering: steady spacing, lane discipline, even right of way. What looks like instinct is, in effect, natural logistics. When the fragments arrive at the nest entrance, a second workforce takes over. These are the mulchers and gardeners. The leaves are chewed into a soft pulp and carefully inoculated with the fungal strain the ants have cultivated for generations. This crop does not grow wild. It survives only inside the controlled chambers of the nest, dependent on the ants, just as the ants depend on it. The gardeners tend the crop meticulously, removing foreign spores or pests that might threaten it, adjusting the placement of leaf pulp to maintain ideal conditions. In a sense, the garden is the true heart of the colony, the green engine that powers everything else. But a garden cannot survive without defense. Hidden within this miniature civilization lies one of evolution's most extraordinary adaptations: biological weaponry in the form of antibiotics. On the ants' bodies, especially along their cuticles, live colonies of symbiotic bacteria. These microbes produce chemical compounds that inhibit the growth of parasitic molds, the ever-present threat to the fungus crop. In human medicine, the discovery of penicillin in the 20th century transformed our ability to fight disease. Leafcutter ants had arrived at the same principle tens of millions of years earlier. Their bodies are, quite literally, factories of natural antibiotics. Every ant is a moving pharmacy, defending its civilization against microbial invasion. This is not mere survival. It is biochemistry honed into strategy. To visualize the nest itself, one must imagine a subterranean metropolis. Using advanced imaging techniques, researchers have filled abandoned nests with concrete, later excavating the hardened mold to reveal what lies beneath. The results are astonishing: a labyrinth of tunnels, chambers, and ventilation shafts, some nests extending over 30 feet deep and housing millions of individuals. At the core are the fungus gardens, vaulted chambers lined with fungal combs, glowing in infrared like living hearths. Around them are nurseries for larvae, food storage cells, and soldier stations. Heat map animations reveal a system of climate control that rivals human architecture. Ventilation shafts draw in cool air. Humidity chambers maintain moisture levels ideal for fungal growth. Specialized waste dumps are positioned at the farthest margins of the city, ensuring that refuse and disease are contained. The trash workers, among the least celebrated of the colony, play a vital role here. These ants are tasked with carrying decayed plant matter, spent fungus, and diseased individuals out of the core city to designated waste pits. They rarely return once contaminated. In many cases, trash workers are effectively outcasts, self-sacrificing for the health of the community. It is waste management elevated to the level of civic duty. Human cities did not invent sanitation. Ants pioneered it. The ecological impact of this civilization is immense. Each colony processes tons of vegetation every year, stripping leaves from trees at a scale visible even from satellites. Yet this is not destruction, it is transformation. By breaking down plant matter into fungal food, ants recycle nutrients back into the soil, fueling the rainforest's extraordinary fertility. Their activity aerates the ground, redistributes organic matter, and influences the growth of surrounding plant species. The rainforest as we know it would not exist without these subterranean farmers maintaining its nutrient economy. Predators, of course, stalk the ant highways. Birds, anteaters, and parasitic flies hover along the routes. A single misstep by a courier ant can mean death, yet the sheer numbers of the colony overwhelm individual losses. Defense is also woven into the system. Soldier ants patrol the trails, their oversized heads and jaws ready to deter intruders. But even they cannot prevent every attack. This constant pressure of predation ensures that the colony's strategies, its traffic rules, its speed, its division of labor, remain finely tuned by natural selection. Perhaps the most fascinating dimension of the leafcutter's world is coevolution. The cultivated fungus, Leucoagaricus gongylophorus, is found nowhere else. It cannot reproduce independently. It exists only because ants maintain it, feed it, and defend it. In return, the fungus produces swollen, nutrient-rich nodules called gongylidea, tiny food packets that sustain the colony. Two species, separated by kingdoms of life, have fused their fates into one. It is not simply symbiosis, it is domestication, a mutual pact of survival written into their biology. As the camera returns to the rainforest floor, the magnitude of this ancient partnership becomes clear. A single green fragment lifted by an ant is not a meal, but a piece of history. It represents a lineage of farming older than the rise of mammals, older than the breakup of continents, older even than the great apes. Long before humans learned to till soil or brew antibiotics, ants had already mastered both. They are the oldest farmers in the Americas, small in size but vast in influence. The irony is unavoidable. Humanity prides itself on agriculture as the foundation of civilization, the point at which we shifted from hunter-gatherers to builders of cities. Yet in the depths of the Amazon, tiny workers had been running agricultural empires for tens of millions of years. They invented farming without hands, medicine without laboratories, and waste management without philosophy. Their civilization may be miniature, but its lessons are immense. To study the leafcutter ants is to glimpse not only the hidden machinery of the rainforest, but the very origins of organized life on Earth. Night falls heavy over the Amazon, the air thick with mist and the sweet sour smell of wet vegetation. While parrots and monkeys sleep in the canopy and jaguars begin their hunts below, another actor takes the stage, smaller, stranger, and infinitely more misunderstood. Vampire bats slip from their roosts in hollow trees and cave mouths, silent silhouettes against the night sky. They are creatures that evoke unease in human imagination, their very name tied to fear. Yet the reality is far more fascinating than horror allows. These bats are not winged demons. They are engineers of one of nature's most complex social economies, creatures whose survival depends less on the sharpness of their teeth than on the trust and credit they build among one another. To begin understanding them, we must first dispel the illusion of flight as their primary skill. Unlike most bats, vampires are adept walkers. On the forest floor, their movements are uncanny, part crawl, part sprint. Using their powerful forelimbs, they gallop in a way that seems impossible for a flying mammal, almost like spiders racing on 8 legs but compressed into 4. This ability is not a novelty, it is a hunting strategy. When they approach a sleeping host, often a cow, a horse, or a wild mammal resting in the dark, they land quietly and then creep forward, step by deliberate step, their weight distributed so lightly that they remain undetected. Evolution has transformed their wings into multi-tools, capable of both aerial maneuver and terrestrial stealth. Once near the host, their sensory arsenal comes into play. Vampire bats are equipped with specialized heat-detecting structures in their faces, tiny pits that allow them to sense the faint warmth of blood vessels beneath the skin. Through these thermal cues, a bat pinpoints the ideal spot where blood flows close to the surface. Their bite is not a dramatic tear, but a precise incision, a shallow cut that opens a vessel without inflicting pain. Their saliva completes the deception. It contains anticoagulants, most famously a compound called draculin, which prevents clotting and keeps the blood flowing. It also contains mild anesthetics, numbing the wound so the host rarely stirs. In the economy of predation, subtlety is more effective than violence. The victim remains asleep, unaware that it has become a living well from which life is drawn. But the true story of vampire bats does not unfold in these nighttime raids. It is revealed back at the roost, where dozens or sometimes hundreds of individuals gather in tangled colonies. Here, in the dim shelter of rock crevices or hollow trees, survival hinges not on teeth but on cooperation. Blood is a difficult resource. A bat can survive only about 3 nights without feeding. Beyond that, starvation becomes lethal. On any given night, some bats return empty-bellied, while others come back swollen with the warmth of fresh blood. What follows is a system that would look more at home in a bank than a cave. Successful hunters often regurgitate blood to feed their starving roostmates. But they do not do so indiscriminately. This generosity follows rules, tracked over weeks and months. Biologists who have studied these bats for decades describe it as a system of reciprocity, a social ledger written in flesh and memory. A bat that shares today is more likely to be saved tomorrow. Conversely, one that consistently refuses to give will find itself abandoned when hunger strikes. It is not random charity, but a balance of debts and repayments, a blood economy in which trust is the currency and betrayal carries penalties. Experiments have shown that these exchanges are remarkably specific. Bats remember who has helped them in the past and adjust their future generosity accordingly. It is, in effect, a credit score calculated in the dark. The system does not stop at food. Within the roost, bonds form that mirror the intricacies of mammalian social life. Females often develop long-term partnerships, grooming each other and sharing food across years. These bonds resemble friendships, tested and reinforced through repeated acts of generosity. In some cases, bats even adopt the offspring of others, feeding and grooming them as if they were their own. This cooperative care ensures that orphaned young are not left to die, but it also deepens the ties of the group, weaving a web of interdependence stronger than individual survival. Yet the system is not immune to conflict. If a bat betrays trust, failing to repay loans, refusing to feed others when it has the chance, it may be quietly cut off. The colony remembers. Future pleas for food are ignored, and the defector risks starvation. In a society where life depends on nightly cooperation, exclusion is a death sentence. Here lies the paradox. Vampire bats drink blood to live, but it is their ability to share blood that keeps their society alive. Their survival is not built on fear or dominance, but on the invisible mathematics of trust, credit, and social enforcement. Humans, of course, have always been uneasy with their existence. Myths of vampires draw directly from them, though distorted beyond recognition. The truth is far less menacing. Vampire bats rarely bite humans, and when they do, it is usually incidental, not predatory. Their preferred targets are livestock or wild mammals, large sleeping bodies that provide steady access to blood without resistance. Even then, the feeding is small, no more than a spoonful, leaving a wound that heals quickly. In ecological terms, their impact is minimal compared to predators that kill outright. But their reputation has overshadowed their biology, painting them as monsters rather than the remarkable cooperators they are. The bat's survival strategies also ripple outward into broader ecosystems. By feeding primarily on livestock in regions where cattle have replaced wild grazers, vampire bats have adapted to landscapes transformed by humans. This has created both opportunities and conflicts, particularly where disease transmission, such as rabies, becomes a concern. Yet, in their original context, feeding on wild mammals like tapirs, deer, or peccaries, they are simply one thread in the ecological fabric, maintaining balance without tipping the scales. Their ability to exploit blood without killing hosts ensures a renewable resource, a predator-prey relationship calibrated for continuity rather than collapse. Perhaps the most striking lesson vampire bats offer is that survival in nature does not always favor the strongest or the most aggressive. Instead, it often rewards the most cooperative. These bats thrive not because they can take from others, but because they can give and remember. They show us that even in a world shaped by competition, reciprocity can be a foundation for survival. Their nightly hunts may be solitary, but their lives are collective, bound by networks of obligation and trust that rival the complexity of any primate society. As dawn breaks and the bats return to their roosts, their bodies heavy with the night's gains, the colony settles into sleep. Some bats curl against one another, others groom their neighbors, still others regurgitate blood to feed the hungry. In the shadows, no contracts are signed, no ledgers written, yet the system functions with a precision as strict as any human economy. This is the jungle's hidden bank, where the currency is life itself and the interest is measured not in gold, but in trust repaid. To watch vampire bats is to confront a paradox, creatures feared for their bloodthirst, yet defined by generosity. They remind us that survival is rarely about the individual alone. It is about the bonds we build, the debts we honor, and the trust that carries us through when the night grows long. The Amazon at dawn is a mirror of shifting light. The water lies glassy for a moment, then ripples fracture the surface as shapes slice beneath it. A swirl of bubbles erupts, followed by the sleek head of a giant otter, its eyes bright and alert. Another appears, then another, until half a dozen surface together, side by side, their bodies cutting lines like synchronized swimmers. In the flooded forests and wide oxbow lakes of South America, this is not simply a family outing. It is the patrol of one of the continent's most formidable hunting units. Known locally as Lobos de Rio, river wolves, giant otters embody the paradox of power in numbers, creatures that have turned cooperation into a weapon sharp enough to challenge even the reptilian lords of these waters. The drama begins when the family detects movement in the shallows. A caiman lurking, eyes barely above the surface, muscles coiled. Alone, the otter is no match for such a predator. At over 4 meters in length, a caiman is armored, explosive, and built for ambush. But the otters do not face it alone. 6 bodies align in a living phalanx, each one slipping into a role as if rehearsed countless times before. Blockers surge to the front, churning the water with their tails, creating wakes that throw off the reptile's aim. Flankers dive, releasing clouds of bubbles that distort vision and momentarily blind the caiman from below. Meanwhile, a harasser circles wide, darting in to nip at the tail or snap at the jaws, provoking sudden turns that expose the reptile's vulnerability. Each pass is a feint, a burst of splash and spray, designed not to kill, but to disorient. This strategy, air, noise, motion, is the otter's greatest weapon. Caimans rely on stealth and patience, waiting for the precise moment to launch upward in a surge of jaws and muscle. Against the constant harassment of otters, that patience unravels. The otters scream in chorus, their piercing calls bouncing across the water, a barrage of sound as much as motion. For the caiman, there is no opportunity to settle, no silence to cloak its strike. The reptile thrashes, frustrated and hounded, until at last it retreats, slipping into the shadows of submerged roots. The otters do not pursue. Victory here is not measured in kills, but in dominance, the ability to clear a hunting ground of rivals and secure it for the group's next meal. To understand the coordination of such encounters, we must turn to sound. Giant otters are among the most vocal mammals of the Amazon. Each individual carries a unique signature call, something akin to a name, recognizable to family members. In the dense cacophony of rainforest noise, parrots screaming overhead, insects droning, monkeys howling, these calls cut through, sharp and distinct. Spectrogram analysis reveals their structure, rapid frequency shifts, distinct patterns that encode not only identity but intent. A low growl may signal agitation, a staccato bark signals alarm, and rapid scream choruses amplify collective aggression. It is communication elevated to orchestration, the glue that binds strategy in the chaos of water combat. But communication extends beyond sound. Along riverbanks, giant otters leave another kind of message, scent. They establish communal latrines, sandy patches marked with dung, urine, and secretions from their anal glands. To human eyes, these sights are unsightly. To an otter, they are billboards, broadcasting ownership and warning rivals. The intensity of scent, its freshness, and even its mixture of individuals provide cues. Which family controls the territory, how recently they passed, and perhaps even the strength of their numbers. In this way, Invisible politics unfold across miles of river, a network of olfactory signals that reduce costly confrontations. For an animal that risks injury every time it faces a caiman or large catfish, avoiding unnecessary fights is as important as winning necessary ones. The heart of otter society, however, is the family unit. A breeding pair forms the nucleus, often bonded for life, their offspring from multiple years forming the hunting team. Unlike solitary jaguars or territorial anacondas, giant otters pour their energy into kin cooperation. Older siblings help rear pups, babysitting them in dens while parents forage. In hunts, they learn roles by imitation, shadowing adults until their timing and coordination match. This apprenticeship ensures that by the time young otters strike out, they already carry the tactical memory of a seasoned hunter. It is a legacy passed not in genes alone, but in lived experience. Their diet is diverse, but dominated by fish, armored catfish, piranhas, and large characins. Unlike the caiman, which conserves energy in long fasts and explosive strikes, otters hunt actively, coursing through the water with high metabolism. They require cooperation to balance this cost. A single otter might expend more energy chasing fish than the meal provides, but a coordinated team can corral schools, driving prey into shallow water where capture is efficient. This cooperation per calorie is the secret of their success in the flooded forests, where prey is dispersed and competition fierce. Hunting as a family is not just advantageous, it is essential. Such strategies place giant otters high in the food web, yet they remain vulnerable. Jaguars prowl riverbanks, and anacondas lie in ambush, capable of seizing even a full-grown adult. Here again, numbers are defense. Groups mob intruders, screaming, biting, and circling until predators retreat. For a jaguar, a single otter is prey. A pack of 6 is risk. For an anaconda, the water may be home, but against relentless harassment, it too often yields. The otter's reputation as river wolves is no exaggeration. They behave as a pack, their strength multiplied by trust and practice. Life in such a cooperative society is not without tension. Territories must be defended not only from predators, but from rival otter families. Encounters at borders can erupt into violent clashes, with screams and splashes escalating into fights where blood is drawn. Yet even these conflicts are bounded by rules. Scent marks and vocal warnings often resolve disputes before physical combat begins. When fights do occur, they shape the map of otter society, redrawing boundaries along shifting rivers. The Amazon's cycles of flood and drought also impose pressures. In the wet season, when forests are inundated, hunting grounds expand, but prey disperses widely, testing the efficiency of cooperation. In the dry season, waters shrink into channels and pools, concentrating fish but also predators and rival families. Here, cooperation becomes most visible. Phalanx tactics, synchronized hunts, and the constant maintenance of scent-marked latrines to assert control. Through these cycles, giant otters adapt not by brute force, but by coordination, adjusting their strategies to the pulse of the river. For humans, encounters with giant otters are unforgettable. Their size alone, up to 1.8 meters, larger than most people expect of an otter, combined with their piercing gaze and unrelenting curiosity, can be startling. Yet their intelligence is undeniable, their society intricate, and their survival strategies refined by millennia of pressure. They are predators, yes, but predators that embody a paradox. The fiercest hunters of the river are also the most family-bound, their lives inseparable from those of their kin. As the day wears on and the sun burns off the morning mist, the otter family retreats to a sandy bank, bellies full, pups tumbling in the shallows. Their scent marks freshen the latrine, their voices echo briefly, and the river settles back into calm. But beneath that calm lies the memory of a reptile driven off, a territory secured, and a family bond strengthened. In the Amazon, where life is often solitary, brutal, and short, the giant otters have written a different story, one where survival is not the achievement of the individual but the triumph of the group. To watch them work is to witness the power of cooperation sharpened into strategy, a living testament to the idea that strength is not always in the jaws or claws, but in the ties that bind. These are not merely otters. They are river wolves, masters of collective survival, patrolling the waters of the Amazon with tactics as disciplined as any military and as enduring as the rivers themselves. In the dim undergrowth of the Amazon, where light filters through a lattice of vines and the soil is cluttered with the remains of countless small battles, there moves a figure that is not what it seems. To the casual eye, it looks like a pile of legs and wings, the discarded remains of insects half-rotted by humidity. Yet the heap shudders, shifts, and begins to walk. This is no debris. It is an assassin bug cloaked in its corpse armor, a hunter that has dressed itself in the bodies of its victims, turning death into disguise. Each shredded exoskeleton glued to its back is both camouflage and deterrent, a grotesque advertisement of what happens to those who come too close. The effect is unsettling. A moving cairn of insect remains slips across the leaf litter, alive with deception. To predators, the disguise may mask the bug's vulnerable body, hiding it from sharp-eyed birds or predatory spiders that hunt by silhouette. To prey, it is the perfect cover. Ants brushing past in their regimented lines or beetles rummaging in the soil are less likely to notice the slender killer beneath the rubble. In a world where being seen is often the difference between survival and starvation, this insect has turned macabre recycling into evolutionary art. Yet corpse armor is only the opening act in the assassin bug's repertoire. For some species, the theater of deception shifts to an entirely different stage, the delicate strings of a spider's web. Spiders, masters of vibration, rely on the tremors of their silk to distinguish prey from wind. Assassin bugs exploit this with uncanny precision. They climb into the web and begin to pluck, their legs tapping out rhythms that mimic the frantic struggles of a trapped insect. The spider, sensing an easy meal, rushes toward the source. But instead of immobilized prey, it finds a predator waiting with surgical precision. The assassin bug drives its rostrum, a hardened, needle-like beak, into the spider's body, injecting a cocktail of enzymes that dissolve tissues into liquid. The hunter drinks deeply, reducing the once formidable spider into nothing more than a hollowed husk. The rostrum is the assassin bug's defining weapon, a tool as elegant as it is ruthless. Unlike chewing predators, assassin bugs bypass the messy mechanics of biting and tearing. They are external digesters, chemists of predation. Their enzymes liquefy organs, muscles, and connective tissue into a broth that can be drawn back through the same needle. It is efficiency stripped to its essence, no waste, no struggle once the toxins take hold. In the microcosm of leaf litter and bark, this method of feeding is equivalent to wielding a hypodermic syringe armed with venom and solvents. Deception is not limited to camouflage and vibration tricks. Many assassin bugs have evolved to mimic ants, nature's dominant infantry. Ants are abundant, aggressive, and avoided by many predators thanks to their chemical defenses and coordinated attacks. By copying the ants' slender waists, jerky gaits, and even chemical signatures, assassin bugs infiltrate ant columns undetected. From within the flow of traffic, they can ambush stragglers or feed on smaller insects that wander too close to the busy lane. To the ants, the mimic is just another worker. To the assassin bug, the disguise is a license to kill. Such mimicry is not simple costume. Ants communicate through pheromones, and assassin bugs must mask themselves chemically to avoid detection. This is biochemical espionage at its finest, an evolutionary arms race played out in molecules rather than claws. Some species even exploit ant behavior directly, preying on the ants themselves, piercing their exoskeletons before the colony can rally in defense. By the time alarm pheromones spread, the assassin bug is already gone, vanishing into the shadows with its prize. The assassin bug's arsenal extends beyond predation. Some species have adapted defenses potent enough to repel much larger animals, including humans. When threatened, they can deliver painful bites with their rostrum, the same needle that liquefies prey. In tropical villages, encounters with these insects have earned them a reputation for aggression, though in truth they are defensive, striking only when pressed. Their venom, designed to immobilize arthropods, translates into a burning sting in human skin, an unpleasant reminder of just how potent their chemistry is. In the grand ecology of the rainforest, assassin bugs occupy a peculiar niche. They are mid-level predators, shaping the populations of smaller insects, while themselves serving as prey to birds, reptiles, and amphibians. Their presence influences the balance of microhabitats, controlling outbreaks of herbivorous insects that could otherwise overwhelm foliage and providing food for species higher in the chain. Their survival strategies, armor, mimicry, chemical weaponry, illustrate how complexity in nature often arises not from size or strength, but from adaptability and deceit. Watching an assassin bug hunt is to observe patience refined into lethality. It does not chase like a dragonfly or bulldoze like an ant. It waits, disguised, sometimes for hours, until prey strays within reach. Then, with a sudden thrust, the rostrum penetrates, enzymes flow, and life is drained. The efficiency is chilling, but also deeply instructive. In ecosystems crowded with mouths to feed, energy cannot be wasted on failed pursuits. Assassin bugs conserve their strength, investing only when success is almost guaranteed. Their strategies echo in broader patterns of rainforest survival. Deception, after all, is one of the Amazon's most common currencies. Orchids mimic female insects to trick pollinators. Harmless snakes adopt the colors of venomous ones. Butterflies display false eyes to mislead predators. The assassin bug is part of this grand masquerade, its adaptations extreme but not unique. In a sense, it embodies the rainforest itself, beautiful, intricate, and dangerous, where appearance rarely tells the truth. At a larger scale, their role invites us to reconsider what predation means. It is easy to imagine predators as brutal, direct, reliant on claws or teeth. But assassin bugs remind us that evolution often favors subtlety over force. Their tools are chemical and behavioral, their victories won through patience and trickery. Theirs is a form of predation more akin to espionage than warfare, a reminder that nature experiments with every possible strategy, from brute strength to the art of illusion. As the camera pans back from the forest floor, the assassin bug disappears once again into the litter, indistinguishable from the detritus it wears. What remains is the memory of a moving pile of corpses, a spider plucked from its own web, an ant column infiltrated by an imposter. These scenes are not anomalies, but daily occurrences in the hidden world beneath our feet. To walk in the Amazon is to tread above countless dramas like these, unseen yet essential to the rhythm of life. In the end, the assassin bug is not defined by size or speed, but by deception. It thrives in shadows, not because it is the strongest, but because it is the most convincing liar. And in the rainforest, where every leaf hides a mouth and every shadow conceals a hunter, deception is often the most reliable weapon of all. The rainforest at dusk is a theater of illusions. Light fractures through the canopy, dappling the understory in shifting mosaics of gold and shadow. To prey animals, the pattern is both familiar and deceptive. Somewhere within it moves a form that does not move, a silhouette that does not resolve. The rosettes of a jaguar's coat, each a sunlit hollow encircled by dark, perfectly echo the broken geometry of leaf and branch. Seen from a few meters away, the largest cat of the Americas simply disappears. But it is not gone. It waits. Jaguars are not built for long pursuits. Unlike cheetahs that burn across open savannas or lions that orchestrate chases on the plains, jaguars are ambushers, assassins honed by the density of jungle and swamp. Here, speed is less useful than silence, and endurance less valuable than explosion. Every muscle in a jaguar's body is designed to convert stillness into sudden violence, shoulders coiled for a pounce, forelimbs packed with tendon strength, jaws engineered for one devastating bite. To their prey, they are pressure plates hidden in the foliage, triggered by the faintest step too close. What sets the jaguar apart from every other big cat on Earth is its method of killing. Lions suffocate, gripping throats. Leopards go for the neck, severing arteries. Tigers crush windpipes. The jaguar does something else entirely. It drives its teeth straight through bone. With a bite force measured among the most powerful of any cat relative to body size, it pierces skulls, punctures brain cases, and shatters turtle shells that would defy other predators. This cranial crush technique is both anatomical inevitability and evolutionary marvel. The geometry of the jaguar's teeth reveals the secret. Its canines are stout and conical, less blade-like than a lion's but thicker, built to resist fracture when driven through dense bone. The jaw muscles attach high and broad across the skull, generating extraordinary leverage. Where other cats bite for grip, the jaguar bites for penetration, focusing pressure into a single devastating strike. This is not trial and error, it is precision. The moment its jaws close, the battle is over. Even caimans, armored reptiles with skulls adapted to withstand combat, fall to this brutal efficiency. And unlike most cats, the jaguar is amphibious in habit. Rivers and flooded forests are not barriers but hunting grounds. Jaguars swim with ease, their heads low, their bodies submerged, rippling forward with hardly a wake. They use driftwood as cover, blending into floating debris until the distance between predator and prey collapses into a heartbeat. A capybara wading at the edge of a sandbank may see only logs in the current. One of those logs explodes upward, claws hooking, jaws closing. In some encounters, jaguars fish with the dexterity of bears. They wade into shallow water, ears cocked for the slap of scales, and then strike with lightning swats of their forepaws. Their claws, semi-retractable and curved, slice through currents to snag armored catfish or piranhas. It is a rare but telling glimpse of their adaptability. They are not specialists bound to one technique, but opportunists in a landscape of shifting resources. At the interface of water and land, the jaguar's camouflage becomes even more formidable. Rosettes dissolve its outline into reflections of foliage mirrored on the surface. At dusk, when light softens and shadows blur, prey cannot distinguish cat from tree or ripple. Capybaras, deer, and peccaries graze at margins, sensing danger only at the last possible instant. By then, it is too late. The pounce is silent, the impact crushing, the kill decisive. In a single bound, the jaguar converts hours of patience into seconds of violence. This ambush lifestyle explains both their rarity and their power. Jaguars cover vast territories, each individual requiring dozens of square kilometers to sustain itself. Their encounters with prey are not frequent, but when they strike, efficiency ensures success. They do not waste energy on failed pursuits. They cannot afford to. Instead, every hunt is measured, calculated, executed only when conditions tip the odds overwhelmingly in their favor. Myth and reality diverge sharply here. Popular imagination often paints big cats as relentless chasers, exhausting prey with speed. The jaguar rewrites the script. It is not a sprinter, but a stalker, not a marathon runner, but a trap sprung from shadow. Its mythology as a ghost of the forest is no exaggeration. Locals often speak of hearing the cough-like roar of a jaguar without ever seeing its body, a voice carried through the jungle as if the animal were more spirit than flesh. This spectral quality has deep cultural roots. For indigenous peoples across South America, the jaguar is a symbol of power, often bridging the worlds of the living and the supernatural. Its ability to hunt both on land and in water, to kill with a single strike, and to vanish into forest silence made it a creature of awe and reverence. While mythology interprets it as divine, biology shows us the mechanics behind the legend: muscle, bone, patience, and silence, refined by evolution to near perfection. The jaguar's role in the ecosystem is equally profound. As an apex predator, it regulates populations of herbivores like capybaras and peccaries, preventing overgrazing of river margins. Its predation on caimans curbs reptilian dominance, ensuring balance among aquatic species. Even turtles, whose armored defenses protect them from nearly all predators, are kept in check by the jaguar's skull-cracking jaws. In this sense, the jaguar is more than a hunter. It is a keystone, a living equilibrium that holds the web together. Yet the life of a jaguar is far from easy. To patrol such vast territories, individuals must move constantly, swimming rivers, climbing banks, threading through dense understory. They mark their domains with scent, claw marks, and vocal roars that resonate low, rolling like thunder through the trees. Encounters between rivals are rare but explosive, battles of claws and teeth that risk crippling injuries. Survival requires not only power, but constant negotiation of boundaries. The physiology that allows for such dominance also carries costs. A skull built for bone crushing demands a broader head, which increases weight and energy demands. Muscles tuned for explosive ambush cannot sustain long chases. The jaguar is a master of its niche, but not outside it. In open savanna, it cannot match the cheetah's speed or the lion's cooperative hunts. Its genius lies in the flooded labyrinth of the Amazon, where silence, stealth, and strength are the deciding currencies. As night deepens, the ghost resumes its patrol. It slides into the river, body a shadow beneath moonlight, eyes reflecting green fire. Somewhere ahead, a caiman rests against the bank, armored and confident. For most predators, the reptile is untouchable. For the jaguar, It is a challenge, one measured not in if, but when. The cat closes the distance, silent as driftwood, until the water erupts and bone meets teeth. In a single motion, predator and prey collapse into silence, one life extinguished, another sustained. The forest swallows the sound, leaves shiver, water settles, and the hunter vanishes again into shadow. What remains is not the drama of a chase, nor the prolonged struggle of predator and prey, but the quiet aftermath of inevitability. The jaguar does not waste. It does not gamble. It strikes once, perfectly, then disappears. To understand the jaguar is to understand that the Amazon's greatest predator is not the loudest, nor the fastest, but the most efficient ghost. With camouflage that erases its body, jaws that turn bone into weakness, and patience that stretches into silence, it is the embodiment of predatory precision. This is not merely a cat. This is the skull-cracking ghost of the forest, the amphibious assassin of river and shadow, and the keystone of one of the planet's richest ecosystems. The blackwater creeks of the Amazon move with deceptive stillness. Tea-colored currents, stained by tannins from rotting leaves, conceal more than they reveal. A log rests among the weeds, half submerged, algae clinging to its ridges. Minutes pass, then hours. The log exhales. What seemed dead wood was alive all along. A green anaconda, the heaviest snake on earth, lying in ambush beneath the mirrored surface. To the prey animals of the floodplain, this is the phantom of their world, silent, shapeless, and patient beyond comprehension. Anacondas win not through speed, but through physics. Their strategy is endurance, waiting motionless, breath held, muscles slackened until the perfect moment arrives. When a capybara or bird edges too close, the snake explodes in motion. The coils whip forward, jaws seize, and the body twists into a living knot. Yet the kill does not rely on brute constriction alone. Anchoring itself in submerged weeds or against tree roots, the snake absorbs the prey's struggle, transferring energy into the water rather than into its own muscles. Each thrash, each desperate kick is countered not by resistance, but by immovable patience. Soon, lungs collapse under pressure, blood flow halts, and the forest falls silent again. The green anaconda is an animal of extremes. Females can reach lengths over 6 meters and weigh more than 200 kilograms, dwarfing the smaller males that coil around them during the breeding season. The spectacle is one of the Amazon's strangest mating rituals, a single giant female enveloped by a dozen suitors, their bodies twisting into a seething ball that can last for hours or even days. Heat-sensing cameras capture the spectacle as a pulsating mass of serpentine bodies, each male following pheromone trails released by the female, desperate for a chance to pass on his genes. In this contest, size determines power. The female selects not through choice but through stamina, the male able to endure longest often securing the opportunity. The difference in size between the sexes is no accident. Female gigantism is a recurring theme in snakes, but in green anacondas it reaches its pinnacle. A larger body allows females to carry more eggs and support developing young, but it also gives them command during the mating ball. Smaller males may swarm, but the female's sheer mass determines the final outcome. And in rare circumstances, when males are absent altogether, females possess another astonishing tool, parthenogenesis. This form of asexual reproduction, documented in captivity and suspected in the wild, allows females to produce offspring genetically identical to themselves. For a creature that can vanish into flooded forests for months at a time, isolated and unseen, parthenogenesis is a fail-safe, an evolutionary backup system ensuring that the phantom lineage endures. After a successful hunt or during the aftermath of mating, the anaconda's strategy shifts from action to stillness. These snakes can go weeks, even months, without feeding. A single large prey item, capybara, caiman, or even a deer, can sustain them for entire seasons. Their metabolism, slow by mammalian standards, allows them to vanish into torpor, digesting slowly while cloaked in mud and shadows. During this time, the snake becomes part of the landscape, indistinguishable from the roots and fallen branches that litter the swamp. To human eyes, it seems like absence. To the snake, it is conservation, energy hoarded, risk avoided. Thermoregulation plays a subtle role in this rhythm of ambush and rest. Anacondas are ectothermic, dependent on their surroundings to regulate temperature. In the cool mornings, they bask at the surface, dark scales soaking up heat to fuel digestion. At midday, when the sun burns too fiercely, they retreat into deeper water, cloaked by floating mats of vegetation. Their olive-green pattern, mottled with darker ovals, provides camouflage that blurs into both shadowed water and sun-dappled banks. To fish, to birds, even to mammals, this pattern is less a color than a disappearance, erasing the body into reflection and current. Yet patience has limits. Prolonged fasting demands efficiency. When prey does appear, the strike must succeed. Failure wastes not only energy, but opportunity, for in flooded forests, encounters can be weeks apart. Here lies the true genius of the anaconda. It does not gamble. It waits until the angle, distance, and distraction align. Then, with an economy of motion, it secures the kill. Evolution has refined this patience into an instinct, a behavior as much about restraint as aggression. The flood season transforms the Amazon into an anaconda's hunting paradise. As waters rise, forests become three-dimensional arenas where every branch doubles as a fishing line and every submerged trunk as a blind. Thermal imaging reveals their bodies as streaks of cool shadow, almost invisible against warm-blooded prey above. Sonar scans show their coils woven into the architecture of the swamp, an invisible scaffolding beneath the flooded canopy. For animals navigating this labyrinth, capybaras swimming from island to island, wading birds probing the shallows, the forest itself seems to reach out and seize them. Predators of this scale shape entire ecosystems. By preying on capybaras, caimans, and large wading birds, anacondas influence population dynamics across the floodplain. Their hunting on fish-rich margins controls prey dispersal, indirectly affecting nutrient cycling in aquatic plants. Even their abandoned kills feed scavengers, piranhas, turtles, and vultures that recycle remains into the forest food web. The phantom's presence ripples outward, a silent architect of ecological balance. Despite their size and reputation, anacondas remain vulnerable. Jaguars are known to prey on them, particularly when the snakes are basking or burdened after a meal. Humans too pose threats, often killing them out of fear or capturing them for the exotic animal trade. Yet their secretive nature is the greatest defense. For all their enormity, green anacondas are rarely seen. They thrive not by confrontation, but by absence, by existing in places too dense, too dark, and too flooded for most creatures to follow. As the waters recede with the turning of the seasons, the phantom shifts again, following channels into deeper pools, conserving energy until the next flood returns. In this cycle of waiting and release, of ambush and fasting, lies the essence of their survival. They are creatures of patience, physics, and silence, perfectly suited to a world that punishes haste. In the closing vision, the camera dips into blackwater and cuts to thermal view. Warm-blooded prey blaze bright against the cool wash of the swamp, moving through what seems like empty space. Then sonar overlays the image, revealing the truth, coils of shadow beneath, woven like a hidden net across the forest floor. The floodplain is no longer a tranquil refuge. It is a hunting ground built for ghosts. And in this arena, the green anaconda reigns, unseen, unhurried, unstoppable.